How are you?
I'm doing all right. How about you?
I'm doing okay considering Disney earnings sucked.
Are you talking about the call or the actual earnings? Because both were
Well,
lackluster.
yeah. Um, Disney beating, missing on earnings, as well as income. Obviously, it's the same thing. Revenue beat on the number of subscribers, but ARPU is down. Average revenue per users. Therefore, um, the additional people brought Disney less money. Um, and I'd like to
That's
go a
the
little.
opposite of what they want these days as far as their parks business.
I want to go into some how I view this as what I think a lot of Disney fans are looking at it from is from what does this mean for the park growth? Because if you look at it from they in, instigated this demand based thing, whatever, right? So the question was always like, well, in order to keep prices lower, you need to increase demand. I mean, increase supply. Um, and also that helps with the sort of reservation system and everything, right?
Mhm.
So how would you increase supply? You build more park, right? Either more parks, more attractions at the existing parks, just kind of grow the places that people can have Disney themed experiences. And um, the one thing that was sort of in the narrative was that they're investing in the streaming business, therefore they don't have free cash flow on hand to invest in the parks business. Now I will say the park expenditures did go up, but that was mostly due to cruise line costs, so whether it was the Wish or the Treasure or whatever bill they were paying for the cruise line in this quarter. Um, but that's not, I think, what most fans are really thinking about is the cruise ship. So um, the the fact uh, the streaming business lost record amounts of money, um, it has impacted cash flow. So, for example, at the end of the last fiscal year, Disney had roughly $2 billion in cash just sitting in the bank, right? So this is after the pandemic and everything, and now they have 1 billion. And this is despite not having a dividend, not doing a share repurchase, just from ongoing operations. So the money they're investing in Disney Plus, well, obviously causing subscriber growth. It is limiting the expansion of the parks. Now, to give the flip side of that is they did say that the cap expenditures on at Disney is going to increase by about $1 billion next year. And I remember when capex for Disney was $1 billion, so it's not an insignificant sum. When asked what it is, they called out at the media business. It's going to be um, some of it will be spent on sort of consumer-facing Disney Plus enhancements, basically, and some back-end things that they were kind of vague about, but just sort of technology infrastructure for streaming, and then Disney parks experiences around the globe. So that's where hopefully that is starting to come back online. So we know obviously the cruise ship costs will continue. Well, they still have two more to go. Um, and we know they're still doing work at Disneyland Paris and Hong Kong. And we know about um, Runaway Railway, and presumably the Adventures Campus expansion would break ground and the ongoing Epcot transformation. But that number does not seem to indicate any sort of massive growth at the parks, at least domestically. I will say we probably would have already known about like that since we're already sort of a month into the fiscal year, and they tend to announce these things a little bit ahead of time. It's probably not super surprising because at this point that the capital expenditures for this year are pretty much locked in of things that we know about, because um, Tron and other things. But in terms of like any sort of surprise big projects suddenly breaking ground in the next 9 months, it's probably not going to happen. Um,
Even though when they raise prices, they're like, "Oh, we've spent more," and it's like, well, actually, if you look at the numbers, you really haven't. At least not at the parks physical, not parks
okay.
business.
And they talked about some of the cost savings that they instituted during the pandemic. I would think of like Magical Express and things like that they kind of never brought back to kind of help them with a potential for a recession. They did say that they will discount and they'll use an annual pass program if need be to discount, but they're not expecting to discount at the level that you saw during the Great Recession. So just keep that in mind. I would also say that I think the parks business, we know that the staffing challenges they have. So I think you're probably okay. Your job may be eliminated, but I'm guessing they'll find something for you. But they just seem to, if you're working for DMED, maybe a little bit of shaky ground as they evaluate their cost structure. So it's not, ad-supported businesses have struggled in the last week or so. You can think of Meta layoffs and things like that. So I would not.
Well, Meta's got other problems.
Well,
at least they're not going too hard on the metaverse. At least in the earnings report. Well, they do have an office, or was that one person's title?
Integrated experiences?
Maybe. There's something that I don't know if metaverse was actually in it, even though apparently they don't call it that anymore, according to.
Yeah, they don't. I mean, it was a buzzword. They felt they needed to do it, and then now that it's sort of an anti-buzzword, they don't. Jeff Geo brings up why they moved Disney Plus Day to the fourth quarter for last minute sub. Yeah, makes sense now, especially considering that there's sort of a natural, I think, sub bump for the holidays. As people kind of try and find things to watch as it gets cooler. So I think doing it in September probably makes more sense. I mean, not from like making it an annual tradition sense, but purely fiscal, sure. And important thing too, I think, is they talk about, okay, the price increase is coming in, December 8th. Ad-supported Disney Plus is coming December 8th. But those are going to be negligible in the quarter because the quarter goes to October, November, December. You'll have a little bit, and I'll probably take, if your price increases December 8th, your next billing date may be December 30th. You're not going to get the full benefit of the price increases right away.
Well, wouldn't the same be said for the subscriber numbers? Like if Disney Plus Day was halfway through September and they're giving a month for $1 or whatever.
Well, I think because I think that,
right.
You don't know the churn on it yet, but I would say, if they subscribe for the ad supported, if that draws them in, you'll have that at the end of the month, even though they may not. Those people have new, but you won't have the benefit of the price increase until the end.
I have a question. Hey,
sure.
I'm Doobie. They lost twice as much money this quarter as they did last quarter on DTC, which Disney Plus. Is that expected?
No, obviously. I mean, in that the stock is now down nearly 8% in after-hours trading. There is some sort of timing stuff that happens, especially with sports rights. Like when you pay them, where the games are. There's an extra NFL game. That's not all of it, though. I mean, they've in the fourth quarters when they kind of, and Disney Plus Day being not the kickoff. Well, yeah, the kickoff of it. You had, for the first time, every brand had marquee content in the quarter, and so that content spend is probably not going to go down. It's not going to increase as much as it has been, but this is the normal level of spend. And then now they're going to try and raise rates to kind of compensate for it. So basically they started the spending on the content before they raised the rates to kind of match that level.
I had a question from LPTV, which unfortunately the chat doesn't come automatically, so I'll read it to you. Tuning in late, anything particularly surprising to either of you?
The pace of the losses. I mean, I guess like if you actually, I don't watch the content and be like, oh, that's a $200 million show. This is a whatever show. The fact that they were willing to let those numbers get so big and really, I mean, just kill the balance sheet. I mean, there was no talk of bringing back the dividend this time because I think they knew they couldn't afford it. I think is surprising for a CEO who was sort of, usually CEOs that are under pressure by the investment community are a little bit more conservative. And, you've seen it with Warner Brothers Discovery and HBO Max and other things where they've really started limiting, let it be known we're reducing costs, whereas this was a much lighter hand on that.
I don't know if I'd call it surprising, but I thought it was interesting that they put a number on Hurricane Ian. They said it cost about $65 million to their parks business during the quarter, although made no mention of the fact that there's another storm heading towards Florida. So that was a little.
They did the thing where they talked about the cast, and how they support guests, which is great, but not like, hey, we're thinking of them again.
Yeah.
Which, they may not want to draw attention that they may have another $65 million impact this time. No mention of Star Cruiser at all, which is probably telling in its own way.
No mention or any question of this mysterious largest cruise ship in the world that Disney apparently purchased?
I think it's a fairly safe bet that the people on this call don't know that rumor.
Which is why we should be on that call. What's it take? Is that just a money thing? We have to pay somebody off?
With the Robinhood call, they take shareholder questions and then move it over to the bankers. So I think Disney should, if they really want to, they call them first. They're not just asking anything. There's someone who prepares them. But yeah, I think if he can, it's got time to sit down with Jeremiah. He's got time to answer some tweets.
There are two things. I'm just going through our live blog now. I was listening, but just multitasking. The mix of international guests in Q4 was roughly the same as pre-pandemic levels. That may be the best news I've heard in the real world in like forever. That's really exciting. And the occupancy for the Disney Wish exceeds 90%. I don't know what occupancy typically is for Disney ships, but 90% sure seems like a good thing. So.
Yeah, I think it's, I'd be careful with that number though, because it was booked out for the whole, inaugural season initially. So sure, cancellations aren't more than 10%, but I don't know what cancellations normally are, but I wouldn't say that is a great review of the ship as much as it's kind of like, going Star Cruiser question, all those people booked it out for the first 6 months.
Okay.
What's the first quarter of the ship or your first year of the ship is people checking it out without, good, bad, or ugly. I think some people just want to see it, even if they know they don't, they're not going to love it. So
that's the behind the numbers talk I like to get from LP. Gio would like to know, did they talk of occupancy for the resorts at all?
Not as specifically as they normally do, because honestly, the parks business is not where the focus was this quarter, but they're strong, and they expect them to continue to be strong. That's why they haven't sort of done any promotional pricing. I think they're more hedging that bet. If there is a recession looming, as some have predicted, but it's not. I think if you see, I think if you look at the parks right now, you wouldn't say. Just watch LPTV. You're not looking at like, wow, that place is empty.
The cost of setting up hard ticket events, like Not So Scary, impacted profit margins. Why is that? Just because of setup versus collection?
Yeah. So profit margin is the margin, not necessarily the revenue, right? So you're willing to sacrifice margin to make more money at times, which is what they essentially do. So if you're going to set up all the trick or treating and do all that extra stuff, it's going to impact the money because it costs more to run a party than it costs to not run a party. But
they also charge a heck of a lot of money for that party. I'm surprised
that the core season is outside of the quarter and the year.
But the tickets were purchased already. This thing sold out 2 days
in. Yeah, well, and they specifically called them out, so they're not against it, but you're just looking at it from a margin base. Whereas, I don't know that the delta between running a day op, which it sacrifices, right? Having a party hurts the day business for that park, and then you have the party, which costs more. The ticket price is about the same. No Genie Plus, no ILL.
Yet.
So, I think it's somewhat telling that while they had Oogie Boogie Bash, they have not done any Disneyland After Hours events, after dark. What are they called? Disneyland After Dark events.
I don't think the last one went over too well.
Yeah, but the Christmas one sold out last year, right? So I think hopefully they're smart enough to realize the theme matters, and it's not just the brand itself, because I think you have. But meanwhile, Walt Disney World is bringing back their after hours events, but those are coming to parks that don't have or have the capacity for additional late night business and don't have the setup costs of the lighting and the decor, right? Just the park. With now you get to buy it twice.
Close Animal Kingdom at normal hours and then sell it again in the evening for a whole separate ticket.
Right. I mean, well, that's a whole business. I mean, why sell it once when you can sell it twice? I mean, that's a whole business of hard ticket events.
Saw that in Contact.
To Doobie's point about the parties being sold out, they probably still couldn't count that revenue until after the events actually take place, right?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. This is cash versus accrual. Disney.
Otherwise, you end up with Enron.
Well, they get to write their own profit margin. That's the way to do it. Mark to market. That's the key. The CFO, who has the best comments all the time, says, she didn't say thankfully, so I'm paraphrasing. The cost that they reduced during pandemic have not returned to normal level. So they are well positioned for a recession.
Yeah. I mean, I think, you could question what that is. I think we all know that there's stuff from the parks that did not return. And there's probably infrastructure efficiencies that have not returned. I remember when they did, direct to room, and they're like, well, we're not going to cut any front desk people, right? Just going to be an option. Well, obviously now they've cut front desk people. So, not individually, because if you want a job at Disney, you can get one, but, assuming you don't script the interview. But
wear pants, pro tip.
So it's not that they're actually cutting, it's not people are losing jobs. It's more of we have more unfilled jobs, but because you are still cutting a position, it is still a decline in costs, even if you couldn't really staff it to begin with.
So in mentioning the various spigots that they can control to just ramp up that profitability whenever they want to, they did mention annual passes. Any speculation specifically on what that might mean?
I think that might mean reservations for them, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Opening more reservations, allowing them to come, and then maybe even sales of them, because that's not really a thing.
Right.
Halfway at the one resort and not at all at the other.
You can buy some at one of the resorts?
Doesn't Walt Disney World still have some lower tier? I don't know. Never mind.
I'm sorry. I'm thinking the main tier because that's the one I'm eligible for. So you can be right.
I know that the upper tier ones, but I thought there was still like a low level Florida resident one that might still be available, but maybe not.
That's a good question.
I can't keep track.
That's the hard part, right? It's like are they available? Are they not? It's like you need a.
She mentioned they reworked their annual pass program, but did they mention that they reworked their Magic Key program as well?
That's what they mean. Or that, she's not going to go down a nomenclature rabbit hole on the call.
However,
she didn't even know if UFC fights were fights or games.
Yeah, she did show off her UFC knowledge. That was really impressive.
Although she didn't mention their waistlines.
Yeah, I
thought she'd have something to say about the weight classes and stuff.
How do you think?
I guess Disney is impacted by the loss of Conor McGregor.
How do you think Bob Chapek's doing, in terms of doing these calls, not as his overall job, but these calls as
he's still so robotic, especially at the beginning. Like I feel like he eases into it, and you can also hear him reading, like Gio mentioned, reading off his papers. You can actually hear the paper rustling when he changes pages. It's just a little awkward.
ESPN should be a premium Disney Plus packages. I'm not sure what that means.
I think the other thing I'd like to bring up is, we've talked a lot about non-family Disney Plus subscribers. And I think it's interesting that 40% of Disney Plus subscribers are in the bundle. So they have ESPN and Hulu. So if that number keeps going up, it becomes a sort of de facto service. And it will probably be the way it's kind of pushed moving forward, which is why they want to keep ESPN, because when you have a streaming service having as Amazon, Netflix, and everyone else has been talking about today, you want to have a streaming service, sports as part of your sort of bundle. And basically, instead of having just one cable channel, you want to have sort of an assortment of cable channels that you're all paying for, regardless of if you watch them or not.
You save money that way. I think that's the future. What are they going to call it when people stop doing that? Cutting the cloud?
I think it's still through a cord, right?
Saving money.
They say cord cutting, but they still have the internet, presumably.
Cable companies always win. They're like Baskin Robbins. Kyle, we should never, ever, ever doubt Kyle. There is still an annual pass available in Florida.
But with ESPN Plus, I thought one thing I thought was telling was that the most viewed ESPN event was a game between the Broncos and the Panthers. So that means nobody's watched ESPN Plus until that point. If that many people are tuning in for that game.
I think though, there's ESPN Plus has a lot of stuff that would have been on ESPN Plus in 1979. Like I'm surprised they have not negotiated for Australian rules football. But like, I mean, if you have an exclusive NFL game, no matter what tier of NFL game that is, that's still bigger than, Italian soccer.
In America.
I am a 80s.
Child, let's go with that.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure it's more quality like we had in the 80s and 90s. Some things.
Tony Betty, I think he'd say that there are some quality TV.
Oh yeah, Owltown and stuff like that.
Owl House.
Owl House.
That just ended, as did the other one, Amphibia. But
Owl House is not quite ended yet. They've started their final sort of ramp.
okay, but he likes Big City Greens a lot. I think he'd recommend that one.
So yeah, there's some. Are these all Disney Plus or Disney Channel?
They're on Disney Plus, but they're Disney Channel. The lines are so blurred. I don't even.
I have a question. So we got this from Rebecca here. Cricket. I can't tell if she's referring to the sport on ESPN Plus
I think
or City Greens.
Oh, good point. Yeah, so that's the big thing with Disney Plus Hotstar. They had the IPL, which is like the upper tier league. They gave up on those because the prices got ridiculous for the streaming rights for IPL. I think they have the linear rights in India or something like that. And they switched to a different league that I can't remember the name of. So they'll have those games. They're just maybe it's like the XFL versus the NFL. Is that basically the idea?
Well, I think like what's big on ESPN right now is Wrexham FC because like of that FX show. Like they're trying to broadcast all their games of like a 5th level soccer club in the United Kingdom. So, but I don't know. It was a kind of a bummer of a quarter. It's like nothing exciting now. It's nothing. They go through. I put a tweet on Live Blog of like Joe Flint from I believe Wall Street Journal. Where he's like, my favorite thing is listening to CEOs reading log lines of upcoming movies and television series, because it's really like that. It's like I saw one person even like I forget where they're from. I think LA Times maybe or CNBC, where they're like he talks about some show coming up. And like as if it's an announcement, but it was just something we already knew that he's just going through the quarter saying it's happening.
In the midst of all this, we put up a story about Indiana Jones TV series in development at Disney Plus. There wasn't any mention of that in the call, right?
No.
So in case you missed it,
apparently went up at exactly the time of the call started, and yet you thought there'd be some sort of tie-in. There wasn't.
Variety reported Indiana Jones TV series in development. Very early, it sounds like, but still exciting.
Lucasfilm projects are known for being on time and delivered in full with their original creative team and everything.
Do we have a first announced director yet on this? So we know one person that won't be directing the final version?
I think one thing that we know is what was the one they announced today? Oh, Sean Levy.
Well, they didn't announce it. It's a trade article.
Sure.
But yes, Sean Levy reportedly developing a Star Wars project, which makes him about the 10th director to be developing something that we just check in on every 5 years or so.
I wonder what
at the same time, I found one from 2020 about someone who's developing something, and then apparently that's no longer happening. So, but they stopped. That one wasn't formally announced either. They used to, StarWars.com would put out a press release. And
I know you guys are so into this. You're good at reading the tea leaves based on what they say, finding the little clues. For our audience who loves the parks, optimistic or pessimistic about the future of stuff happening at the parks right now?
Well, the stuff that people hate the most isn't going anywhere. You're still going to have reservations. It sounds like Genie Plus is doing pretty well, so they're probably not in too much of a rush to severely overhaul that. So on that case, I'd say pessimistic. Hopefully we'll get more announcements about, like Benji was saying at the beginning, it doesn't sound like we're going to have any big unannounced projects in the next several months, but maybe after that. I mean, I guess they're probably waiting for just in time for a recession, right? Or will that make it easier for them to build? And if they can invest if there is a recession?
They don't lean into recessions like they probably should.
Because I know they have cash on hand, but borrowing is very expensive right now. So if they did need to borrow, they would need to wait.
Well, and I think we always knew that this was not going to be the quarter where we found out if the parks business is going to normalize. They used to say that Disney Plus will be profitable in Q4 in fiscal 2024, which starts October 2023. However, they specifically came out today and said that they don't expect it to happen until Q4 2024. So you really
back the profitability for Disney Plus?
Well, they just got more specific. So they never said it was Q1, but they said sometime in there. Well, they're hedging their bet probably that we're going to go towards the end of it. But I think that really means it's not till 2025 when you're going to have any meaningful park investment.
Now, I don't think it ever came from Disney, but when Disney Plus first launched and we were seeing the gangbusters that it was becoming, wasn't there a lot of speculation that profitability was going to come even sooner than they had initially announced?
I don't know if people said profitability would come sooner. I think the subscriber numbers people said were lowball, especially when the first numbers came out. And I forget the target that they set most recently is what they've hit, except that they said that number would exclude Hotstar, and the number that they gave us today does not exclude Hotstar. And I don't know what Hotstar was to know how close they are to that. But yeah, the last one they said was like 160 million excluding Disney Plus Hotstar.
Well, and I think the thing is that initially they came out, okay, we're going to spend this much and we're going to have this many subscribers. So they upped the subscriber goal and upped the content spend to kind of match it. But so they changed the game, but they didn't really change the timing.
Okay.
The profitability has been pretty consistent. Just
are they hitting? Are they hitting the subscriber numbers that they had anticipated? That we kind of pushed forward? How are they doing on subscriber numbers compared to what was expected?
Well, they never really gave us, quarter by quarter what they expected. I would say based off of what we've seen regarding what we've seen regarding the results of expected from Wall Street. Yeah, they're exceeding it, but they also we didn't know. They did say that it's not going to be consistent. It's going to be kind of spotty. And I think until they launch this ad tier and raise the price, we really won't know. That's really where it's going to play out.
Right.
So next quarter, while the revenue won't come in, at least we'll know what the impact of the new strategy is going to be.
Does Wall Street or Disney give any guessing or guidance on how successful the ad supported tier is going to be?
No, because they say things like, "Oh, we're optimistic," or we're excited for it.
Okay. As All in the Game points out, that revenue per subscriber is still low relative to Netflix. I assume that's true. Netflix is still quite a bit more expensive than Disney Plus, right?
Right, and Netflix spends a lot more on content than Disney Plus, so it's not an apples to apples comparison.
It's a different streaming service.
So yeah, the ARPU for Netflix is going to be much higher because they charge a lot more. You also have, I think the one thing they mentioned about it is that they're going to be more strategic in their how they roll out stuff, and they're not going to just release everything. So
Disney Plus.
Right. So I think you're going to see more of that A level content and less of that D level content. You know, the big shots of the world, Mysterious Benedict Societies, maybe not so much,
So,
but your Mandalorians and whatnot.
so I remember what
It
Disney
seems
Plus. Go ahead. Sorry.
which is in contrast to Netflix, where there's just tons of garbage on it.
When
And
Disney Plus
it's
launched,
a volume.
we were very excited that we had a place for the singles and the doubles finally, and apparently we don't. They're going away.
Well, I mean that's what I mean. When he talked about it, that's the way I'm reading the tea leaves. They haven't come out and said it, but I will say, you just look at the push. Now they're going to spend less on marketing, so maybe it's just good to have it there, even if they don't push it. But you look at what's trending on Disney Plus, and those are not in. You have Bluey, and whatever the Star Wars and Marvel thing is, Mickey Mouse Funhouse and Jessie, and
also, I mean, if you look at, like, yes, they did raise prices. They raised prices a couple of times, and this next one's going to be a larger one. But remember that Disney Plus was supposed to have like a few headlining shows like Mandalorian, but then a bunch of like reality stuff. If you look at like the earliest days of what they were putting out there with like Supper Club, it's vastly different from the things that they're adding these days.
Well, and I think it's interesting too in that stuff they just really just dropped it. I mean, some of that stuff never even showed up, or it showed up and without even a trailer being released.
We finally got Magic Camp though, so
Yeah,
at least we did something right.
It reminds me of thinking long term about the park similarly. Obviously, no one's subscribing to Disney Plus just to get big shots, but I kind of feel some people who subscribe to get Mandalorian are hanging around because it turns out big shots is kind of nice.
And I mean, wow, Mysterious Benedict Society is like one of our favorite shows. So we look very forward to getting up tomorrow and watching the latest episode of that. So
and it's so easy to cancel and resubscribe that I hope they remember some of this and some of these smaller things can stick around because I do like having them there, and I watch as many of them. I love the Mighty Ducks Game Changers. I mean, fun show. It's not a Mandalorian, it's not an Andor, but I'm happy as can be that it's on Disney Plus, and would hate to see it in shows like it disappear.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I just don't know. I mean, and I could be wrong. I mean, he didn't say specifically we're getting rid of mid-range content, and I think there's always going to be a certain amount of it, especially with the Nat Geo brand, where it's sort of super accessible. But
at 40% off.
I think I don't know. You compare to the marketing for Mysterious Benedict Society season 1, and you compare it to season 2. Now, obviously, a launch is a launch, and second season isn't. But it's just not part of any. There's nothing. There's not even barely a tweet.
How much does Disney do on Netflix? Every Friday, I'm getting an email from them. I'm getting a push from them letting me know, hey, this is something you might like. They're never right, but I'm always getting it. HBO Max does the same thing. I can't think of getting a push alert from a Disney Plus app.
That's a really good point.
And I'm not even sure I get an email. I know we get emails as Laughing Place, but I'm not sure I get a weekly email from Disney Plus letting me know new stuff I might like.
Their rotating banner placement is also kind of ponderous sometimes. Like, I think because of Disney Plus Day, the finale of Ms. Marvel was like the 7th thing out of 10. And you're like, really? You're going to bury it like that?
And they know me better than Netflix because they know what I do on DisneyWorld.com, Disneyland.com. They know, I mean, seriously, everything with the go.com, they presumably.
Well, I think that's where this technology change is coming into play, because I don't think they actually know how to do that.
So it is a shame that they cannot market their stuff to me as well as Netflix.
Well, they should get. I mean, they already have the guy, War Machine, Don Cheadle. He's familiar with algorithms. They should get him on it.
No Space Jam 2 references.
Yeah, Gio mentioned I see ads for Disney Plus stuff. That I do see, but just the direct marketing that I get from other streaming services is really lacking from Disney Plus. And as Rebecca says, I would even agree when I just go to DisneyPlus.com. I don't know if anyone else, or pull it up on Roku. It does not. It makes sure I know that the new episode of Andor is available, but every single time I go to Netflix.com, it's showing me something completely new that I didn't even know was on there. And I always want to watch it, and I always stop after 30 seconds. But at least I know it's there. Anyway, they're going to spend less on marketing.
Like one of the things that I noticed is like I watched Mysterious Benedict Society all the way through season 1. Season 2 pops up. It doesn't come up in my continue watching.
Yeah,
So-
their continue watching bothers me a lot too, because even if I don't know, I could rant about it, but I'm not going to, because we're going to end up in barely if we get started.
Just the lack of tech at Disney. If Bob
Did I lose? Is that me?
It's probably me. It's always me. Am I back?
Yeah, I think we all got muted for some reason.
Black helicopter. Just say if JPEG can have one legacy other than dynamic pricing, I hope it is fixing Disney tech. That can go as a tech guy. I have seen what decent tech can do to help a company overall.
Well, they approve an ad tech, so at least the things that they care most about are apparently working. It's not something consumers will never see.
Oh, it'd be great if my Magic Band Plus could help my Disney Plus. Yes, wouldn't it though? They know everything about me. Use it. I have no privacy concerns. Use it. Give me the best experience possible. That's all I want. All right.
Any final thoughts, Benjamin?
No, I am dutifully trying to rebook all of our team members' flights that all got canceled in the middle of the show.
Cancellations officially happened.
Yeah,
Well,
MCA closing down at 4. Not closing down, ceasing commercial operations tomorrow at 4 p.m.
I can still take a nap there.
Well, that Lego guy was that statue can take it out there.
He's not a Lego guy.
I think because there used to be a Lego one at Disney Springs, but there's a statue.
He's a very lifelike thing too, especially in pictures. It's kind of creepy.
Been a change to your trip. Red exclamation point.
That's the bad kind.
Yeah.
Anyway, I gotta go deal with this. So you
Not my
guys.
problem. Okay. Talk to you guys later.
Thanks, guys.